Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight's discussion will focus on one of the most notorious open-air drug markets in the United States. Kensington, which is a section of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was once booming with industrial job opportunities. However, after the closing of multiple factories, continued job loss, and general neglect, as well as the introduction of heroin in the 1970s, Kensington became a favorable place for drug use because of the empty factory spaces, buildings where drugs could be stored, sold, and used. The video that you just saw was a few days on the streets of Kensington and what the current situation is. Tonight, our goal is to answer any questions, provide local resources, and restore hope to families who may have lost a loved one in Kensington. We do have a few general housekeeping rules. So firstly, this is a live discussion. We encourage any questions that you may have. And while we will prioritize audience questions, if we don't get to every question that is submitted, we will collect them, answer them on a later date, and we will post that on our resource page that you can see at the bottom. We do lastly ask you to keep your questions and your comments kind and compassionate. The men and women that you're about to meet work on the streets of Kensington daily, and they genuinely care about the individuals whose lives they're trying to save. So please, when posting a question or a comment, just keep in mind the air of kindness and compassion that we are looking to instill in tonight's discussion. So with that all being said, I'm going to introduce our first panelist, Sean Ryan. Hi, Sean. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, Marissa. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Ryan. I am Senior Vice President of Business Development at the Naaman Center and Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge, and I am also a graduate of our Pennsylvania Adult and Teen Challenge program.
I love that. Great.
Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Next onto the stage is Ramon. Ramon, good to see you tonight.
Hey, good to see you. Good to be seen.
Yeah.
Well, my name is Ramon Crespo Jr. I'm the community liaison at the Rock Ministry. I've been serving there for the last 8 years. We have a chaplain center that we have sent people to detox and recovery throughout the city of Philadelphia and out. One of them is Adult Teen Challenge that we're there every day. And among a lot of resources that you look at our website and you could get all that information.
Thank you. You guys are doing great work. Now I'd like to introduce Dan. Dan, welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Dan Sheehan. I'm with the Operation Save Our City at the Sunshine House, where we're a drop-in center at Kensington and Somerset. We provide the unhoused there with recovery programming, clothing, food throughout the day, wound care, nursing on site. We have a messaging center where we try to connect loved ones with their lost or with the unhoused with their loved ones. We also have a lost board where we try to help loved ones find their missing. And then we provide alcohol and drug-related base case management services as well.
Great.
That's about it.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Thank you, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, Nabori Rosario. How are you tonight, Nabori?
I'm good. How are you guys doing today?
Great.
So my name is Nabori Rosario. I work for the Naaman Resource Center in Frankfurt and Allegheny for Adult Teen Challenge. We offer resources for the homeless community, offer showers, fresh clothes, placement, whatever they need.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. Well, tonight we are going to kick off with a few questions. And again, audience, we encourage you to participate. Please submit your questions. And again, if for some reason we don't get to your question and have our panelists answer it tonight, we will make sure that someone does answer it and we post it on our page. So the first question we have, and this one is going to Dan. Why do people struggling with addiction seem to come to Kensington?
I think Sean said it best in the intro when he talked about it being the largest open air drug market, which invites accessibility, availability. The strength of the drug supply is very high. It's known for it. Like I said, the availability is there. There's no rules. It's for anybody struggling with addiction. It's like being a kid in a candy store. I mean, it's there's really no consequences for a lot of things that are going on down there. It's basically they can use without consequence. And I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, that's the main reason. I mean, and the availability is there, like Sean said. It's, I don't know how many, over 80 occupied drug corners. I mean, there's no more middleman. There's no more giving it to somebody and going down the corner. They can go right down the street and get whatever they're looking for. So there's accessibility, availability, and a strong drug supply.
Wow.
I totally agree with that, Ken. I answer that question too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like to get to the resources and ask people if I need an answer, I want to talk to somebody and answer. There was this one guy that was going away, and I asked him, "What brings you here?" He's from Pittsburgh, and he said, "Somebody said, if it makes sense, where can you live a good urban life?" He said, "Go to Philadelphia," and I said, "What does that mean?" He said, "Where in the world can you go that you can live rent free, get 3 meals a day, and get free samples every hour of the hour?" How can I answer that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak from somebody who actually spent some time on those streets. Now this is many years back, and it wasn't like it is now. But when you like see and hear the things that are going on there, like if, especially now with social media, if I'm a drug addict and then I'm in another city and I can just watch what's happening in Kensington, and you see all those people living together in almost like this community-like state, because, addiction can be very separating, and you're especially when in the street, you're kind of on your own, you're fending for yourself. But Kensington's kind of like a different breed. They kind of like navigate together, and they kind of like, although it's dangerous and they fight and crazy things can happen. Dan, Nabori, and they see it every single day. It does become kind of this like addiction community where you're kind of at least accepted, and as an addict being on the streets and things like that, when you don't feel accepted, it really is troubling. So you go to this place, number one, where the drugs are better, they're more accessible. You can do them right, like Dan was saying, right on the street and not go to jail. Now that's starting to change. Thank God they're working on some of those things. And then you're kind of part of this community, and it's even cheaper. I mean, the drugs are cheaper. You can get more for what you pay for. And like Ramon said, where you're going to have breakfast, where you're going to have lunch, where you're going to have dinner, where you can get a shower, where you can get new clothes, where you can get, some treatment for free because you have some wounds or whatever. So, and there's nothing wrong with all those resources like that. But that's kind of like, I think one of the biggest draws is kind of like community-like setting for addicts to kind of have this lifestyle, and they can continue to live it and kind of be accepted.
100%. Sean, that's such a great point.
Well, that's all really good to understand and know, because I think for a lot of people from the outside looking in, it can be confusing why there's such a pull towards Kensington. And then for the loved ones, so you have family members who might be out of state that don't really know much about Kensington. They have no idea where their kids want to go there. What would you say, like, how can families help their loved ones who get stuck in Kensington and can't find their way out? Nabori, do you mind answering that one?
Sure. I think it's connecting to a resource in Kensington. I don't encourage anyone to go out there looking for their family members on their own. I also, just talking to the clients daily, on a more intimate level, the moment they find out that someone's looking for them, sometimes it causes them to get anxiety. They don't want to be found. So they run. A lot of times they run because of the shame, because it's part of addiction, right? So a lot of times I encourage people, come to the Naaman Center and the resource and try to get connected, try to volunteer. Local churches, go to local churches, but I don't encourage anyone to not be with a good group of like outreach people, to get connected and be protected, because it's scary out there. And so a lot of times we have a lot of moms come to our Naaman Center, and that's one of the places that we can get to even counsel them, right? Because I've been in addiction. Other people have had family members. We've all lost someone, and we can totally relate, get them even into counseling if they need to, but get the family into a safe place and get them the resource they need to help those that are struggling out there.
Amen. I totally agree with what you say. but also I don't think it's I can't, it's that they won't. So it's hard. You can't force anybody into recovery, but you could plant the seed, and maybe one day they get it. And it's hard. They talk about a lot of different things. You can't force people to do stuff. You could just tell them we here if you want it. And I've seen it. I've worked with people for a whole entire year, and then finally came down broken. Broken. They have to be broken and say, I want your help. I'm here for you.
And I agree. I agree about the planting seeds, and I think that like when they come get a shower, right? And no force, no judgment. For 45 minutes while they're there, they're feeling good, everything. We plant that seed, say, hey, when you're ready, we're ready. Yes. And whatever you need, we're gonna be there to support you, you know?
I agree. It's simply just keep loving on them until they're ready. And that's all you can really do.
Yeah, I think I always encourage families because, when we do like our family day trainings up at, one of our center in Rearsburg, one of the things that we talk to the families about is, understand like what addiction is and like how it works. Understand the drugs that your loved one is taking right now and how it affects them and how they feel and how they're going to act. So number one, it doesn't catch you off guard, so you know what to expect. And then there'll be things you can learn on how to react to those reactions that they're doing. Family members, usually the conflict between family and the loved one is usually there's the most strain there. We don't want to listen to our family because what do they know? They don't know anything about this life or what we went through, what we're going through. And, the mom or the dad, they just love their child so much. They're just willing to do anything for them. So one, knowledge is power. Learn about the addiction. And Nabori said it best, connect with resources in the area, go to the Rock, get with Ramon, get with the pastors there, and they'll help you connect with the right people. Go to Nabori, see how that works. Go to the Sunshine House, talk with Dan, talk with Roz, who runs the Sunshine House there, and connect with these resources, because if you try to do it by yourself, it's not going to go well.
You hit the nail in the head.
You want to have these people supporting you. So, and then where the resources are. So when your loved one says, "Well, I can't even get a shower. I'm dirty. I don't want to deal with it right now. Just leave me alone. I need a stinking shower." Okay. Well, guess what? I know where I can take you to get a shower. Let's go get a shower. I think
it's all free.
Exactly. So I think that's really important for loved ones. And I always tell loved ones too, it's very stressful for the loved one too. So make sure, you're in some type of, whether it be counseling, therapy, a group, make sure you have some support group or something, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of emotional and physical and mental stress that is going to weigh you down and maybe shorten your ability to kind of love your loved one. So
you put it right. I say all of us together could make a difference.
Correct.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can I say something also? And it has something to do with what they say with community, right? So Dan, Ramon, all of us, we're part of that community. And it is the community. Take care of each other, right? And it's crazy, but this is why it's so important that we love on these people, and we're part of that community. We protect that community. We don't enable the community, but we also want to give the tools for the parents to be healthy, and I think that all correlates together,
Absolutely. And it impacts the family so deeply too. So they also need resources so that they can handle this crisis as well. All right, switching gears a little bit. So one of the other questions we've had asked, how have things changed with the rise of drugs like Trank? What does addiction look like today in Kensington? And Dan, I have that question for you.
Okay. With the rise of Trank in the community and in the supply, it's a much more vicious addiction from what I see. It's scarier. Withdrawal symptoms happen a lot faster. It's really become a healthcare crisis. As far as how it's changed. You're talking about when heroin was around. Guys could, maybe last a day, on the street, and now it's 2 hours, and they're running back to the corner. And on top of that, it's caused a almost like a healthcare crisis too. I mean, with the wounds and the abscesses. I mean, in some cases, organ failure, brain damage. I mean, it's fatal. I mean, it really is scary. I mean, I also believe it adds to the increase in the amount of unhoused we have out there. I see I talk to guys who live in South Philly. They have an apartment in South Philly, but he's living on the streets in Kensington.
Oh,
So why are you living on the streets in Kensington if you have an apartment? And he's, well, I'm have to re-up in 2 hours. So why would I leave? So he just stays in Kensington, So they say that the drugs don't have legs. If it lasts 8 hours, it has legs for 8 hours. I mean, I hear him talking about 2 to 3 hours, and they're running back. So, I mean, I think it increases the homelessness. I think it's just it's caused a vicious cycle in the neighborhood, and I mean, obviously, we see what it's done.
yeah.
I mean, healthcare wise, it's just scary.
Yeah.
And we've seen that footage. We see people kind of walking, nodding out, just being completely passed out on the side of the street. Are there anything else that you guys are seeing? Any other drugs that are becoming more prevalent?
Maybe I agree totally with Dan, and God bless you with the work that you're doing. But back in the days, I'm not here to glorify it. Heroin, and you did heroin, you did coke. That's what you did. They knew how to resolve that.
Right.
This is a whole new ballgame. This is not what you think it is.
Yeah. I think the challenge too is, when you did heroin, you did cocaine back in the day, it didn't really affect your overall mental health. It just affected your physical health and through withdrawals and things like that. But now the stuff, the xylazine, which is the trank, epiditomine or whatever it's called, this new thing,
Metatomidine,
the rhino trank or something like that. They have all these crazy names for this stuff. Like these are like vicious chemicals that are really affecting people's mental health. So the mental health is huge in Kensington now, because it's not just an addiction problem to the fentanyl or whatever, but it's a mental health crisis because of these additives that they're putting inside this drug, because their bags, because it's cheap, it's easy for them to get, and it does knock people out. I mean, you see them in the videos, they're hunched over, they're laying on the ground, and it's really affecting the way they think. They can't cognitively reason. And when you did heroin, I mean, obviously you didn't always cognitively reason that great, but it was just a different you still had your wits about you a little bit, to the point now where this is really affecting their mental health. And it's not the type of like mental health where, we'll put you on this drug and it's going to fix it. It's like really messing up their brain and their ability to reason and think. And we hope that over time, and by the grace of God, that their brain and their functions start to come back where they can reason like normal human beings again.
Yeah.
Greg and I were talking about that today. Greg from Teen Challenge and I were just talking exactly about that. It's the supply, and I think I was just reading one of the comments, and they brought up I think Roz brought up a great point when she's talking about how Trank has changed the addiction in Kensington. It makes it even harder to get people into treatment. With the rise of wounds. I think I might even left that out last question. I mean, with the rise in healthcare problems, we can't get them into traditional treatment programs. They have to allow them to become care level 4, and they have to go up into a hospital setting. And, it really limits their choices at that point, and what they can and can't, where they can and can't go.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I see a lot of meth usage
lately. Yes.
So I see a lot of that, which is kind of, I think I shared this before, which is kind of challenging when it comes to doing intakes, right? If they've been on a binge, it looks like they're in a psychosis pretty much, because they've been binging on meth for days, And I'm hearing a lot from the community that there's this thing where they're leaving the fentanyl and they're actually picking up meth.
Wow.
And so there's this thing. So then now you have people that think they're better than the other people because they left the fentanyl and they picked up the meth, believe it or not. And now they're functional.
I have to chime in on that.
They really believe they're functional. But seriously, and then it comes, they're binging. I have people that come in on a daily to get like oatmeal, and you can just tell, and they haven't slept and make no sense. And even trying to get them into crisis, it's kind of hard because they can't do an intake, So I'm seeing a lot of that too. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
we had a guy. Good. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, I can just tell you that when it's funny that you say they're going to meth, because one of the ways I got off opiates was methamphetamine. So when you're out, when you don't have any more opiates and someone has some meth, you do some meth and it keeps you from getting sick and it kind of keeps you awake and it kind of brings you back to life. And then you just continually keep using the meth because that's where you're at. And it's so funny that that's still happening today, that these people are transitioning.
Absolutely.
And it's just a transition from one drug to another drug so that they don't have to go through the withdrawals or whatever they have to do. And now they've invented classes, which I think is,
It is. And they won't go. And they won't go. They still won't go into treatment. They're functional. They're making
They're just doing meth.
money.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. I'll chime in real quick. I had a guy just on Friday. He said, he told me he was substance free, and I said, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "I haven't used fentanyl in over 90 days." He's like, "I'm only using I'm using meth though." And he thinks he's completely, he thinks he's sober. So, but he's still using meth every day. So I mean, it's so true. It's so true.
We do have a question from the audience. So the question was, how are your organizations and the city working together to better this neighborhood? And I thought that was a really great question. So who's interested in answering it?
I mean, I guess.
I mean, your drop-in center with the showers and all that. I mean, that's you guys are. I mean, I think the drop-in center is a great addition. How the naming center is helping.
Well,
I think
our church. I'm sorry. We have every Tuesday. We have a wellness fair. Yeah, so we have it from 10 to 1. You can go at any given time. See several RVs in front. Inside, you have 30 to 40 different services from the city, from detox, from rehab, project homes, shelters, counselors. You name it, it's there. The resources are there. The question is, do they want it? And we're there every Tuesday. And not only every Tuesday, we're there every day.
Yeah, I mean, we're, the Naaman Center, we have the Resource Center, 3200 Frankfurt. We partner with The Rock, and we have somebody in their drop-in center right on Kensington Ave, 5 times every day, Monday through Friday. Then Dan, he's there. Dan, I don't know if Dan even goes home. He basically lives in his place. I think he has a cot in the back. I don't know. He calls me all crazy hours, trying to get somebody to treat, which is great. Thank God for Dan and the work he does. And it's interesting, and I'll probably answer the question a little bit later, but the city kind of has its initiative, and we understand it to an extent, right? So we see it like in part, and we know what they're trying to do. So we're just trying to fill in those gaps where we can help. There's a lot of city things that are going on that we work with, like the PAD department or Meraki. Those are city-driven initiatives to try to do the Unite Kensington and help it become what it should become and help clean it up and help the people who are hurting. So we partner with those organizations to try to make sure that we're available for them as a resource. I know Dan does. I know Ramon does. And they have that meeting every Tuesday morning where lots of different providers and different people from the city come together and they discuss, what's going on, the new initiatives that are going out, who has beds, who doesn't have beds. So there's a lot of people involved in it, a lot of things going on. And we're doing our best trying to do our part in this whole thing.
I'll chime in one quick. I don't work for the Naaman Center, but they are very present. I'll give you that. They are present in Kensington. They are everywhere. As he said, they are always available. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on this live with them. I depend on them daily. Nabori, I depend on Sean. I mean, even Brian, I depend on all of them. So they're definitely present in Kensington and they're making a difference. I'll give them that much.
It's a collective approach. I think everyone is doing amazing work and contributing in such significant ways. We do have 2 questions. So I have from the audience, what is the withdrawal for meth? Is it the same? And also, is there any sort of MAT you can use to combat meth? And if we need a medical professional for these, we can.
Yeah, so let's disclaimer, none of us are medical professionals.
Yes.
I'm an ex-drug user professional, so I can from like that perspective.
Yes.
The withdrawal is totally different. It's not, it's not like a real physical withdrawal. Yes, you will not have a ton of energy. You'll be cranky. You won't feel good, but it's not like, opiate withdrawal or anything like that. What the hardest part is the mental withdrawal, because your mind is constantly thinking about that particular drug and how it makes you feel and what you can do while you're on it. In the beginning, you can get so much done. So it's really more those stimulants like cocaine and methamphetamines, for me anyway, were more very mental for me, very hard for me to get out of my mind. It took a long time, where opiates was a very physical withdrawal, challenging much more challenging than the methamphetamines and cocaine. Now, is there an MAT for it? I mean, not that I'm aware of. I have heard in the past of places that would, as you come in strung out on amphetamines, they would use certain types of prescription amphetamines to try to bring you down slowly and stabilize you so that it wouldn't be so bad. But really, there's not an MAT that I know.
Yeah, I've heard of that too. Like maybe there's no MAT, but like I've heard them use Adderall or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
bring them off, it's stabilize. But there's definitely, I don't think there's an MAT program for that.
No.
Thank you. So the next question we have, what are the biggest challenges to get people into treatment? And I know Ramon and I had a discussion about this the other day. So Ramon, do you mind taking this one? Biggest challenges to get people into treatment?
Wow. Out-of-state insurance.
Yeah.
Out-of-state insurance. That's one of the biggest ones. Can it be done? Yes, but it takes long. And when it takes long, you got a 5-minute window before they change their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that. Fortunate enough, I think over the past 6 months, maybe, the city of Philadelphia and their single county authority, or BHSI, they have this grant money that they use for people who are uninsured, or if they're from out of state and they have out-of-state insurance, but we can get them some type of Philly address. Or even homeless, and if it's detox, they're usually pretty good at trying to help them get in. And then, for us as an organization, it's very challenging, at least for me, and I know DeBoer will probably tell the same thing, and Dan and anybody who's in this industry who wants help, who doesn't have insurance, to tell them no, because you don't want to say, well, we want, we're glad you want help, but we're going to try to figure out where you can go, because there's really not too many places you can go without funding. So a lot of times, and it doesn't happen like crazy, but one thing we have is scholarships at our program. And then if we don't have scholarships, sometimes we'll just bring them in, man, because at the end of the day, if we can save that person's life, that's the real end result we're looking for. So, but the out-of-state insurance, I think the biggest challenge of getting people into treatment is actually helping people realize they need treatment. We're very resourceful people when we're on the street. We like the guy's on meth. He just said, he's like, I'm fine, I'm doing great. I haven't used trank or anything in 90 days. I'm drug free. Now I'm smoking the heck out of meth, and I haven't slept in 4 days, but hey, things are great.
Right.
So, to help people realize, especially because the mental health is so prevalent now, to help them understand and see, like, listen, like, the direction you're going is going to lead probably to like one of two things. You're going to go crazy and you'll be in some institution, or you're going to die. And that, I think that's really the most challenging part, is to try to get people to realize, without pressuring them, because people don't want you beating on. Nabori said it best: we're not here to judge you and beat it into you. We try to love it into them and help them come to their own knowledge that they can see that, okay, I need help. But I think that's probably our biggest hurdle that we have is trying to help people realize that they need treatment.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I come.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I think
I come across the. I'm sorry. I'll keep going. I apologize, but I come across like a lot of healthcare issues, things like that.
Those two.
We talked about earlier, like with maybe they got there's wounds or there's serious mental health issues or there's medications or like the last couple of days I've had a couple with the folks not having their medication or enough medication to show up. They didn't have it on them, or so like somebody with diabetes and things like that, or it could be anything. But if they don't have their medication, and look, let's face it, a lot of the folks are unhoused. They don't have a lot of stability. So having their medication, like most of us do, it's not the norm. So there's a lot of that's a that's a roadblock that I come across a lot. But like healthcare is a big concern. It's a big issue for me getting past that a lot. They just get denied, or they have to go up to a care level 4 type thing, or like I said, or they're just not getting into a traditional treatment center.
I totally agree with Sean when he said when I told you about the 5-minute window. I've seen it myself. When you said, look, forget about it. We'll take them pro bono. We deal with it later. See, it's not that we cannot get them there. It's just the process that happens. And Sean knows exactly what I'm saying. And he does it, takes them, and God bless him for that. Over there, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to say that sometimes just making a plan, right? A plan. Because a lot of times it's the withdrawal. It's the scare of the withdrawal for them. And they're scared because they don't know what they took and how they're being treated or whatever fear they have, right? So one of the things that I like to do at the Naaman Center is like, hey, let's make a plan. Whether it's a pretend, whatever, just a plan to see where they're at. And I always notice that once we do that and I have something set, whether it takes a month or 2, consistency is key. They eventually go. Because I think talking it out, saying, hey, you know what? You're going to feel terrible. Keep it real. There's nothing you can do but just walking them through that and talking them through that sometimes, because I hear a lot of times getting them into treatment is the fear of withdrawal.
Yeah.
We have another question from the audience. So the question is, what is available post-treatment for reintegration into society? Is there enough of this? So I think that's a great question, especially when we're taking people out of care.
I struggle with this all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big struggle. I mean, a lot of times we put people in treatment and 30 days later they're at our door again, and there's a lot of factors that go into play here, because there's a lot of moving parts in this, because you have treatment centers have their counselors and or the case managers, whoever's in charge of helping them with aftercare. Then there's, they're depending on certain services like AOS and other services that are necessary for placement and things like that. So a lot of things have to come together, but it's definitely a challenge. But it's one of my biggest challenges is, they land on my doorstep when they finish treatment, and then I'm looking for a recovery house when that should be done. A soft handoff, in my opinion, should be going from treatment right to the recovery house. It shouldn't be going from treatment back to Kensington to a recovery house. If they're lucky to get to a recovery house, because let's face it, the odds, if they land back in Kensington 30 days, under their belt, I mean, the odds are stacked against them. I mean, let's face it, they don't really stand a good chance. I mean, God bless anyone going through that, but that's almost, it's a big obstacle for these people to overcome, and when getting released from treatment and having no stability to return to, that's a major issue.
Yeah. I think one of the big challenges though is people don't stay in treatment long enough. Okay. So when you're in addiction and you're in Kensington, on the streets of Kensington and that deep of addiction for years, the chances of you going to a detox and then 30-day program and then coming back to Kensington to a recovery house of success, I'm going to tell you, are like slim to none. I'm not saying it can't be done, but the chances of it being done are very, very small. And,
Mhm.
this is where, I think that some communication, collaboration, and some understanding would help a lot because, we encourage, our organization, we have a detox 30-day program, but then we have an additional 90-day program, and then you can even stay for a year. And we generally encourage anybody, but especially the people from Kensington.
Yeah.
You only been here 30 days, you can't go back. You go back, you're going to be right back here again. And a lot of them do listen and they stay for that extra 90 days. And then some of them stay for a year, and we have plenty of people who graduated our program, but there's not enough post-treatment programs to support, I think, the people coming back into that area. And number two, I don't think people should go back in that area. A lot of them aren't even from that area. So if you're not from Kensington and you came from New Jersey or whatever, I mean, I was from Camden, but I'd come over to Kensington all the time. And if you're not from that area, the programs should be trying to work to find out, where are you from? Where do you live? How can I get you to a place that's going to be a much better environment for you to live in recovery without all the challenges that you had and faced when you were in Kensington. So I think recovery should be longer than it has been recently, which will give you greater success. And then I think people need to work on making sure that they're not going back to those same places, especially Kensington.
Yes. Amen. Well, and we also have another question from the audience that kind of ties into that. So Sergi's asking, urgency to get someone into treatment is now essential.
Yeah.
Are there rapid response teams or some kind of urgent take-in program available for someone who wants treatment? That goes to all of you, not just necessarily Naaman, because we have two other organizations as well. When you guys identify that someone wants to come in for treatment, what is kind of your quick take on that?
We have an unit that's always there, that has a case manager and an EMT. That always helps a lot throughout Kensington area. So
yeah,
they're very good.
For me, I mean, our struggle is basically, it's time sensitive. Like the guy said, it's urgent. When somebody decides that they want to go to treatment, I mean, there's a limited amount of time to get them there. So transportation is such a key part in this, and there's organizations that are great at it, and there's many organizations that just simply fail at it. Not to talk about the name, but you guys provide a great service when, after an assessment, there's usually an Uber immediately there to pick them up. Not everybody provides that. There's a lot of organizations out there that do, but that is one of my biggest struggles is when somebody comes. I face that a lot with the in city treatment centers, is getting them there. It's easy to get there. There's close, but I don't have an Uber service to go, or not to, or just for a name one. You know what I mean? Or just anywhere. So my biggest struggle is definitely transportation, and it's such an urgent need is to get, once they decide to go, be able to put them in a car and get them to the treatment center is such an important task.
Yeah, that window is really small. So, and I can just speak from experience because I know, being in addiction, when they say, when you get a yes, it's go time. It's all hands on deck. Nobori, what do we got? About 20, 25, 30 minutes tops to get them processed. So we'll try to delay them. Get a shower. We'll get you some new clothes. Have a cup of coffee. We're trying to we're trying to do all this. And as soon as they're approved, it's enter. They're on the phone with the Uber, and hopefully the Uber is there in about 5-10 minutes. They're in the car and they're out of the city. And that has to be the norm for anybody working in Kensington to want to try to help somebody, because you give them too much time. That I'm
chasing them up and down the Ave.
Yeah. I've watched Dan chase people every day. He's chasing somebody. He was just here, Sean. He was got ready to go, and he's running around, trying. So it has to. It's got to be fast. So the question was, do we have that? And yes, we do. That's why we have that center. Come in, get your process, get the Uber, get you out. Usually within probably about a half hour, 45 minutes.
It's so important. It's so important. And a lot of people just miss the ball on that. But I mean, there are many organizations out there doing a great job at it, though. But, which we're fortunate to be connected with, and I'm glad. Yeah. But it's such a challenge.
That's great. Well, we actually had a comment from the audience, and this is our next question. And this one's for Sean. Okay. How do we break the cycle of arrest and release while getting people help?
Okay. This is a pretty controversial question. I was a proponent of being arrested, forced into treatment, and that's what kept me in treatment. So I'm a supporter of that. I think there just has to be, and I think the city's starting to do it, some diversionary tactics, right? Like the PAD department has this way where you can go in, you can tell them you have this addiction, you have a problem, with no judgment, with no charges. They won't, and they'll help place you. I think they have this new wellness court right now that the mayor is doing, which I think is a good idea. They're picking up people for minor infractions, which they do in every city. I think people think, well, it's only Kensington doing this. Listen, in Camden, they started giving you loitering tickets. If you're walking in a space that you shouldn't be in a known drug area, they would pick you up and take you in because that's what they were trying to clean up the streets. So I think the wellness court diversion, I think a big thing that would be really important would be training the police, and it stinks that it falls on the police, but they're the ones that are really interacting a lot too with the people on the street, training them to understand, how to read the addict, what they're using, what's going on, so that instead of automatically maybe charging them with something or trying to arrest them, maybe, and they have like the PAD, they'll call the social worker, call the person, and then try to find placement right from there before you get them into jail and the trauma of all that. And, those kind of things. And there are other states that have done that. New Jersey, where I live, did that. The police would offer you treatment before they would even try to take you in. And it was very successful in certain areas. So I think those types of things, having some good diversionary protocols and training the police would be probably two good things.
Right. That's really helpful. All right. So next question. This one's for Ramon. And we've kind of discussed this a little bit too. You talked about planting seeds. So what do you do for people who don't necessarily want help or not ready to accept help?
Well, like again, I can't force, or we can't force no one go nowhere. It's like if I tell you you're going to go to church and you're going to like it, because that's just impossible. Well, we could tell you that we're here for you. When you're ready, we have the resources. I can't sit here and say, listen, I understand what you're going through, because I'll be lying. I can't. I don't know the withdrawals you're going, the issues you get every day. But I could tell you, I could help you. So if you're ready, walk in those doors and I will help you. God don't stop working in my life. Why should I stop in someone's life?
I would definitely agree with that. And I mean, so Ramon, how many times do you think you'll see someone before they are ready to get help? Like those really difficult cases, how many times are people coming in before, you kind of plant that seed, water it? What do you like around ballpark estimate? And I know it's different for every person, but
it is. It's very, you can't even answer that question. But I could tell you, like say by planting that seed, I could give them a bottle of water, get to know them. What's your name? Your name is Michael. My name is Ramon. How you doing? What you do here? Remember, they don't trust nobody.
Yeah.
Right? So they looking around, and I bet, and they leave. Maybe the person next to me say, Ramon, he left. We don't got him. Yes, we did, because he knows who I am, and most of all, who I do it for. Here comes the next day. Michael, how you doing? Come over here. You want a coffee? He drinks the coffee. He tells me, Ramon, I have a son. Conversation escalating. He's trusting me. He comes Friday.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Can you help me? That's easy. That's the part. You don't need you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't need a college degree. You just have to show them grace and mercy and meet them where they're at.
That's beautiful.
Trust. You said it.
Amen.
I think trust is the biggest.
And it'll come. Would you get upset that they're not going? Of course. But you cannot bang nothing into anyone.
Yeah.
They cannot. That doesn't work. That's never going to work. I don't care how you shape it, color it, and make it look like a cartoon character. It's not going to work. You just got to just trust and show them grace and mercy. I've seen people for years I've been in the app for years before I was a drug dealer. So I know both sides of the story. I was that guy across the street. So who better else to talk to you than myself?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of leads us into our next one. And I'd love to have each of you answer this question because this is pretty powerful. You guys are there day in and day out. You're seeing a lot of different things. You're having to handle a lot of different crises and things like that. How does working in Kensington impact you? And Nabori, I'd love to start with you and then we'll go around. Are you muted? Oh, she is muted.
I am muted. Sorry, my cat was trying to rip my door down. So, I was raised in Kensington. I got incarcerated. I went through treatment court, and I graduated from another program. I didn't go through Teen Challenge, but so I would say that working there every day is, I believe, it's a calling. It's not for the weak-hearted. I mean, it takes a lot, right? And I feel like coming from Kensington and working down there for as long as I have, I believe that it does take a toll because we've lost a lot of people. We've lost a lot of people, and sometimes we want them to get well more than they do. We watch a lot of people just wither away and stuff. And I love my community. I love Kensington, and I have a heart for it, and I know that, God calls us all, but he handpicks a few, and you gotta be a little rugged.
Amen.
To be out there, and I think that it's a passion. I think it's a calling. I think it's hard. We've cried. I think all of us here have had times where we have placed people in Ubers and held our breath until they and pray to God they don't jump out, right? And then you hear the stories later, and this is our everyday. This is our everyday. This is in our backyard every single day. Growing up in Kensington was not easy. And like I said, it's part of healing, getting it together, bringing it together and meeting people where they're at, because I know the people that were there for me to this day are a big part of my life, right? And you won't remember a lot of things, but you'll remember how people treat you. And so that's my heart. It's just loving people, loving the lost, right? He leaves the 99 for one, so I'm all about that. So I think working in Kensington, it's hard. It impacts. Sometimes we're numb. We're frontliners. We've seen, I think the guys were talking about that. We hear gunshots. We're like running towards it versus running away because we're just so used to it, right? We want to see what's going on. So, but yeah, I thank God for having a good relationship with Christ that keeps me grounded. I think that's very important, very important.
I think you go in there with the mindset that you're going to help them, but at the end of the day, they help you and make you the person that you are today.
Yeah. That's definitely.
I mean, for me, it's I don't think I realize it until the day it's day to day, so I don't realize the day is over. You're so involved and it's so hands on, and you're working with people. I mean, just from the second you step on the Ave until the second you leave the Ave, and it's I don't realize until I sit down at the end of the day and it's like all at once you decompress. You know what I mean? And but like Nabori said, you become almost numb to the action and even to the violence. She was talking about an incident where running to the bullets. Like, just recently we've had a lot of gun violence, or at least gun shooting over by our area there, Kensington and Somerset, in that neck of the woods. And it's like you wait for the shots to stop, and then you run to find and help the nearest person who needs help. You know what I mean? It's you're running with a red bag and a tourniquet, looking out, and you don't think and I don't think anything of it until I'm telling somebody else that story and they're looking at me with their eyes popping out of their head. You know what I mean? So, but that's just, I guess kind of, it's what we do.
Sean, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, there's a couple answers to this question. One, it is a great reminder that that God intervened in my life and pulled me out of a pretty hopeless situation. And it reminds me that he's still doing it today and he can do it. So then it kind of inspires me. I like to, and I haven't done it as much lately, but once the weather gets better and I'm down there some more, I really like to go out on the street. I'll grab the boy, be like, yo, we're going out. Let's go. Right. We bring some, and it's funny because, my little intro is I bring a pack of cigarettes with me because, nobody wants to talk to you at first. They look at me and they're like, who is this guy? Like, bro, you don't know nothing about me. Keep it moving. I'm like,
Are you
can
a
I help
cop?
you? How you doing today? They're like, nah, I'm good. I'm like, all right. And I know, because listen, I knew I always wanted a cigarette, but I never had a cigarette. I spent all my money on the drugs and I would smoke the little, things out of the ashtrays and try to get whatever extra cigarette I could. And so I would bring a pack of cigarettes. I'd be like, oh, how about a cigarette? And they're like, oh, yeah, you got a cigarette? I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, I'll take one. And I'm like, oh, okay, how you doing? I'm like, hi, my name's Sean. And then you start talking to me. And it's just, it's like Ramon says, it's almost, it's more beneficial for me to go out there and talk to them than it is for them. Maybe I get them into treatment and maybe we help them and they get their life around. But what it does for me, reminding me that that's where I was, and we serve a great God who can pull you out of that, and the opportunity is still there. It's really inspiring, but it also is, and I feel for the people who are there every day because I'm not there every day. Ramon, Dan, Naboria, and so many others who are there every day. It's like sensory overload because there's flashing lights, people yelling, cars honking, police sirens, people ODing. There's smells. Everything is just happening so fast, so much. By the end of the day, when I go home, I'm like completely drained. My mind is drained. My body is drained. And the people who do that every day, I don't know how they do it. And it's by the grace of God. We know that. But, it can affect them, emotionally, physically, their well-being. And I feel for them and I pray for them. And it can be a very challenging place to work, like nothing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Well, that was beautiful. And we are getting ready to tie this discussion up. We've had a lot of great questions, but Sherry actually had one of the questions that we identified as being really important to talk about. So she's asking, what are some ways individuals, companies, organizations can help those on the front line fighting this epidemic? So I know we talked about this a little bit. Sean, I'm going to pass this one to you because your response was really interesting. I know a lot of people mean well and they come into the city. But for you on the front lines, what would you suggest if people want to get involved and want to help?
I think if like an individual wants to help, and a lot of organizations, especially church organizations, and certain business stuff like that, they want to put things together. They want to come down. They want to feed them. They want to give them clothes. They want to do this, and they don't really have a plan, but they just want to be there. And I always recommend to them is number one, if you want to volunteer or do something down there, go to an organization that's already doing it, and work with them because they can instruct you and guide you on what to do, what not to do. Go to the Rock. When we first came down, before we were even in there, the first thing we did is we reached out to the Rock and said, hey, we want to come down. We want to learn about Kensington and we want to do a little outreach. So we met up with Ramon. He gave us the tour. He told us about the Rock, and he told us what we should and should not do. And then it gave us like a little bit of a home base. So if we needed a place to go or whatever, we had that place. So for individuals, I would say who want to volunteer, link up with an organization. You can call us. I mean, we have some volunteers that come that have reached out to us through Facebook or whatever, and we've got them approved, and they come and they volunteer at our center or Sunshine House or the Rock or whatever. For companies and organizations, I think John Maxwell said it best. He said, I want to be on the front lines doing everything so hands-on. He says, but I can't. I run businesses and I do this. He said, so God has blessed me with the ability to financially support the people that are doing it. So for organizations that can financially support, I'd say, please do. I mean, it does cost money to do this. And the Rock, Sunshine House, Naaman Center, we're all there doing the best we can with the resources we have. And the more available resources that we have, the more, the further our hands can reach out. So, for companies like that, I would say, and then come tour. One of the things that we do for a lot of the organizations that want to help us, we bring them to our center so they can actually see and kind of feel and understand what's happening there and the work that's being done there. So come down, go to the Rock. Let me tell you, Ramon is a great tour guide. If you want a tour of the Rock and what they do in Kensington, and you want to meet everybody, Ramon's like he's almost like the mayor of like Kensington. So go to the Rock. He'll tell you what's going on. You'll stop at the Sunshine House. You'll see Dan. You'll come to our center. You'll see us. Go see what it's like. But, if you want to volunteer, link up with somebody. If you're an organization that wants to help, you can come down and bring people to and volunteer. That's fine. But if you can financially support too, I think that's a great way. And ask for updates. See what that money's being used for, so you can see the kind of work that you're helping.
And thanks a lot for everything you said. But it's not Ramon and it's not the Rock. It's all of us. It's to God be the glory. And this is beautiful because it's not the name and it's not the person. Us right here and the other people that are here, we make the difference.
That's right.
We.
Look, I'll chime in too. There's always a claim of, is it enabling, or are you enabling? Look, if you're, and sometimes, you are crossing the line. If you're just coming down and just feeding and dropping off clothes, but if you're not offering them a way out, then I believe it is enabling. So that's why I think Sean, it's important when Sean says work with an organization that's down there that offers ways out for people. Because you just, like I said, that's always the argument. Are you just feeding them? You're giving them this, that, and of course they're not going to leave. You're giving them everything they want. But if you're not offering it, then okay, maybe you could make a claim to be enabling. But that's why it's important to work with organizations that are already down there, because they're helping people get out of there.
Yeah,
absolutely. So we're going to start finishing up. Just before we end, does anyone have a success story or something that's happened in the last few months that
I have one?
Sure. Okay, I love it.
There was this one guy that was, nobody belongs out there. Don't get me wrong. But in my heart, I was always seeing him 6'2", big dude. And I see him, he was an alcoholic, always laying in front of the Rock. And I said, yo, man, listen, we got the resources. We can help you. Let's make this happen. Oh, I'm not ready. I get it. I said, look, just turn back, knock in this window. So I just waited. I waited patiently. I came one morning, 5:30 in the morning when I got there. He was sobbing, crying hysterically. Ramon, I'm ready to go. I seen it in his eyes. I said, come on in. Let's sit down. So I like to do an evaluation. As he was talking to me, everything he said was, thank you, God. God bless me. He keep me. So I said, before we're going to send you to detox. Afterwards, I want to send you to a Christian program, because that's what your spirit is telling me. We did that. Send them away. Send them to U-Turn for Christ. A year and a half went by. So I'd like to visit these places, because it makes my job easier when I'm evaluating somebody, because I know them. I know who they are. They know who I am. So it makes, when I'm talking, I said, they fit in. I asked for the guy. He's not here. So what happened? No, he graduated. It's 2 phases. One, you go, you wash your clothes by hand. The other one, it's a mansion. You earn your washer and dryer. You go to Bible school. So he became a teacher. He taught people. I said, where he's at now? He now runs a U-Turn for Christ in California. And not only that, he called me a year ago. He's ordained. He's a pastor from Kensington. So are they success stories? Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
That's beautiful. That's so encouraging to hear, because I think a lot of times we just hear about the conditions of Kensington and people stuck there and a lot of overdoses, but we don't hear about the people, unless you're blessed to work with them, hear of the success stories. So I think that's really encouraging for people to know that it is possible, and, it can happen. Yeah. Anyone else?
I mean, I can share one. I guess we're not supposed to say names, or what I'd say first name, but a young man by the name of Sean. The first time we went down there, as a matter of fact, Ramon, when we were out there, you were kind of guiding us, told us what to do. And then as we were out there, we're like, okay, we just knew that the Lord wanted us to be down here, and we started partnering with you, and then we expanded, what have you. But that first day, we ran into a young man named Sean, and we talked to him, and we loved on him. We prayed for him.
Amen.
Gave him some clothes, and we offered treatment, and he didn't take it. But then we started working a few days a week in your center, before we came full time there at the Rock, and he came in and he saw Brian, remember Big Brian, and he said, I remember you guys, talking to me, and I need some treatment. I'm ready to go get some help. So Brian got him all set up. We got him up to our center in Rearsburg. Went through detox, short term, 90-day. Did the long term program. Then he stayed to intern for another 6 months, and he's almost up. Yeah. And now, which is almost you're like getting hired. He lives there, and he's about to really become a full-time staff member now. So you took somebody who was on the streets for 5 years who couldn't do anything. The guy, he looked a mess. He wasn't
barely could walk in the office.
Huh?
He barely could walk in the office.
Barely could walk in the office, right?
I remember that day like yesterday. Yes.
Yeah, and now he's about to, be employed and work in the field, have a place to live. And he, when those guys from Kensington come up, he's one of our best advocates because he meets them where they're at. Like, hey man, I was just a year ago, I was where you're at, or a year and a half ago now, I was where you're at, and here's where I am now. And this is the opportunities that are provided to you, and we can help you get there if you want it. And, I think he's one of the big reasons a lot of the people stay, because he's interacting with them. So it's crazy, and he loves the Lord. He's saved. It's crazy how his life has been so turned around. And I'm going to tell you, there's more stories like that than those two. There's a lot of success.
100%.
Oh, he's our March appeal testimony. His testimony is on our website.
Yeah.
So somebody, if they want to see it, they could go to our website and see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Naboyer, Dan, any closing thoughts or anything you want to share?
I just think that it takes all of us, each and every resource that we have to work together to make this happen. It's not one entity, but God, glory to God for everything. But just working with everyone with the same heart is getting people help is key to this. So.
Absolutely. Dan?
Yeah, and I thank you guys for inviting me. And, I love working with all of you. It's definitely a team effort, 100%. Like Sean mentioned, the meeting on Tuesday we have, like, literally my job is to connect the folks down in Kensington to all those resources. It's a room full of resources, 40, 50 people, all different organizations down there to help, and it's a perfect example of, people coming together for, to help the greater good. So it's so important that we all work together, and an event like this is great, and I appreciate you including me.
Absolutely. Amen. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we're looking forward to doing more of these live discussions as we continue on. I'd like to thank our panelists again, Sean, Ramon, Dan, and Naboyer. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and God bless, and have a great rest of your night.
Amen. God bless.
Same to y'all.
Bye-bye. Thank you guys.